Great. There we go. All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm excited to hear what you're doing. Another lawyer who has left practice to do something far more fun and with real value to people. So tell me about your career path, how you ended up, what you started out with, and then how you ended up where you are now.
Yeah, I actually thought I was going to be a journalist. When I was in college, I landed a really cool like summer job with CBS News, and I became very friendly with the director of HR because she lived on my block, and I thought that when I graduated college, I would probably go be a production assistant for 60 Minutes or maybe 48 Hours Investigates. But it was a kind of crazy time in journalism back then. Rathergate happened, and there were massive, massive shakeups at CBS. And the woman at HR who I was friendly with said, "Hey, it's probably a really good idea to go get another degree, and you can always sort of come back to CBS." So I ended up at Cardozo Law School because I wanted to be a little bit closer to home. And my second year there, I sort of fell in love with prosecution. And there was a practicum at Cardozo where we spent basically the entire semester as student ADAs at the Manhattan DA's office, with very, very little time in the law school. And that was for me because the courtroom was sort of where I belonged. I was a high school debater. I did a little bit of debate coaching for high school. That sort of combatant, like blood sport was part of me. The intellectual blood sport. So I went into prosecution. I loved it. I spent almost 7 years at the Bronx DA's office. I did general crimes for a while, and then I went to the financial crimes division, where I did some really interesting stuff, did a massive wiretap. And the wiretap was centered around an identity theft ring that targeted Chase Bank. And we took down, I don't know, about 30 defendants, something like that. I think maybe even more. And somewhere around there, the universe kind of aligned, and Chase Bank needed somebody who sort of knew the criminal world because they were found to have a deficiency in their anti-money laundering program. And so they needed to start this unit that used subpoenas as sort of the red flag for potential wrongdoers within the bank. And guess who was the number one subpoenaer of JP Morgan Chase in the prior year? It was me, because we were doing that wiretap. So I guess it was a natural fit. I went over to JP Morgan. I helped start this unit. We got that running. And then I went over to litigation, where I sort of wore two hats. I defended the bank in defensive litigation, credit card stuff, safe deposit box stuff, wire fraud, all that stuff. And I was also a liaison between the bank and law enforcement, because the bank receives a massive, massive, unbelievable number of criminal subpoenas and regulatory subpoenas every year. And there need to be lawyers who kind of watch over that stuff and make sure that the bank gets law enforcement what it needs within the bounds of the law. And so I was one of a small handful of people who did that. But in the background of all of this, for about the almost 13 years now, I've been working with the autism population. Also, some people who are not autistic and just neurodivergent, but most of my clients are autistic. So I've always sort of had this coaching practice in the background, because especially when I was a prosecutor, I saw the worst of humanity on a daily basis. Especially there was a summer back, when was it? Maybe like 2010, something like that. It was a really hot summer. I was in the grand jury bureau. There were tons and tons of shootings, and stabbings every day. And I just needed something uplifting to do. And ultimately that kind of led me to coaching and ultimately the autism population. And I've been sort of doing that ever since, but now that is my full-time job. And
That's
kind of
interesting
going back.
because you clearly loved what you do. Just to listen to you talk, you were so excited about it, just seeing the progression of your career. And then to make such a change, was it like a little bit of burnout? You just wanted to do something good out there?
Yeah, I really loved being a lawyer. I mean, being a prosecutor was one of the great, you know, great challenges and great accomplishments of my life. I loved being in the courtroom. I loved sparring with other attorneys and with judges who were, very tended to be quite anti-prosecution. I loved my job, and then I went to Chase because being a district attorney in Manhattan pays nothing. And I was, getting married, starting a family. I needed to go someplace where, I could contribute to a mortgage. And
Yeah.
so, going, taking my financial crimes background and bringing it to a bank that obviously pays significantly more was a very natural progression. Um, but I've always had this entrepreneurial itch. I've always had this desire to be an entrepreneur while also helping people. This company that I run now for autism isn't even my first coaching company. When I was in law school, I had a coaching company where I helped first year law students, sort of pass their exams. So, my coaching, teaching bug goes way back. But the idea of like leaving the law to coach law students just didn't that wasn't going to be the path. But so I take my legal skills and I've repackaged it into friendship and dating skills, and now I use my trial law skills to help people on the spectrum connect with other people.
So, which skills turned out to be the most valuable?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about like a courtroom lawyer and you think about someone like Sam Waterston, right? Standing up in front of a jury, giving an opening statement, a closing statement, whatever. You think about someone who has poise and confidence and good body language, asks good questions, tells a good story. Um, well, guess what? The science of what makes people attracted to each other, friendship wise, relationship wise, it's the same skills. So I have this saying now that winning over a jury of 12 is not much different than winning over a jury of one. It's the same skills. But the important thing is that the way my brain works, it is very good at taking large skills, breaking it down into smaller bites, and then being able to teach it to people whose brain wiring is different. So, all the skills that I learned as a prosecutor and as a litigator, those are human skills, right? They're human friendship skills. They're human dating skills. But what sets me apart and my partner Alana Frank is we know how to take those skills and make them digestible and understandable to a neurodivergent brain.
Yeah, well, that's something also just in general, when you're presenting a case to the jury and it's something complicated, you have to explain it in a way that people can understand in those bite-sized pieces. So absolutely, the ability to be able to get out there and present, it must be hugely important, but that doesn't mean you can teach it. So it's impressive
Correct.
to be at both ends. For those who don't know your company, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so it's called My Best Social Life. We're at mybestsociallife.com. And we offer a free training on our website to autistic and neurodivergent adults on the 5 steps to being more social, making friends, dating. And we also offer a free training for their parents on how to help them do that. And I also go around the country by Zoom and sometimes live to do a free to do a version of this free presentation for different organizations. So I was out in New Jersey recently, and I delivered this at the New Jersey Autism Convention, and then I went up to like Westchester, New York, and I did it for the JCC. And we we have plans to give this workshop as far away as Stockholm, Sweden this year.
Wow.
So We do it everywhere. Because it's a really important conversation to have. For a lot of families that have an autistic young adult or neurodivergent young adult, there's some very like concrete priorities that oftentimes are just there in front of your face, right? Like independent living, finishing school, getting a job, keeping a job. Those are all very important things, and they tend to consume an autism family's energy. And the underlying skill that allows them to be good at that and also enjoy it, right? Those social skills are oftentimes just sort of kicked down the road because it just feels like a softer skill. And so, so that's what we do. Like we start this conversation about the importance of working on those social skills and working on those friendship skills, because if you're a good friend, you'll probably be a good employee, right? If you know how to talk to people at a social event, you'll be better at interviewing. But if you ignore those, yeah,
absolutely.
two sides of the same
It
coin.
really is important to be able to talk in an engaging way, whether it's on a date or it's in employment context.
Right.
So that is an important skill. Being likable is hugely important in the workforce now. As somebody likes you, they're more willing to listen. You get more rope. You get more opportunity because they want to work with you. So these are really important skills across the board. How did you specifically get involved with this particular group of people, as opposed to just, doing coaching generally? How'd you connect with the autism community?
Yeah, so they invited me in. I had very little knowledge about autism until I was in my 20s. I have a cousin who is profoundly autistic, and that was my concept of what autism was. And I had no real idea about what a spectrum was and how different people on the spectrum really are. So when these special needs organizations came to me and said, "Hey, like our young adults are already coming to your workshops at the Manhattan Jewish Community Center. You should come and do them for us specifically." I was like, "Yeah, sure," but I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I love to tell the story about how I did my first workshop for the adaptations program, which is a very well known, very well regarded program in New York City at the Silver Center for Special Needs at the JCC. And so I did this workshop for them, and like one guy was on his phone, and another person was like twirling in circles, and one woman was like staring up at the ceiling. And after the workshop was over, I went up to the office of Allison Kleinman, who ran adaptations at the time, and I was like, "Whoa, that was a failure of epic proportions." And what she basically told me was like, "No, that was not a failure. Like you're used to a jury who kind of watches your every move, and when you pace back and forth, they kind of listen to you and they track you. And people who are neurodivergent pay attention differently." And like my head popped off my shoulders. I just didn't understand what I was seeing. Yeah. And I had trouble processing, that this group of people like enjoyed listening to me when it looked to me like they were just kind of in their own world. And I realized, that there was a group of people who really, really badly wanted connection, and there was no really good way to help them with that. Mm-hmm. Lots of well-meaning therapists, lots of nonprofits, lots of social groups, but nobody was actually solving the problem of this loneliness in a scalable way. And I thought to myself, man, like, what was I? I guess I was in my 20s back then. I'm a 20-something-year-old tenacious New York lawyer. I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to be the guy to crack this code. And I have literally spent every single day for the last 13 years refining how to help autistic people be more social. And now I get to do it full time. And what I didn't get to say is, we offer like this sort of free, help in the form of this workshop to people. But what's really meaningful to Alana and me is that for the people and the families for whom the message really resonates, we actually give every family, with an autistic young adult, 90 minutes of our time at no cost. We call it a strategy session. And we get on the phone, as long as mom, dad, autistic young adult, right, assuming a traditional family, but as long as the three of them are willing to get on the phone for 90 minutes and all sort of share their perspectives, yeah, we get together at no cost. We dive into what does their young adult want their social life to be, their friendships, their relationships, where are they getting stuck in the process? And then we say, okay, now that we understand what you want and where you're getting stuck, this is what we see as the path forward for you. And if that resonates with you, we'll talk with you about joining our program, which we call Social Life 360. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's totally cool. We'll part ways as friends. But that 90-minute conversation is our opportunity to learn about a family, figure out what's going wrong, what they need to go right. Are we the right people to solve that? And if they are, we advocate for them to join Social Life 360, which is an absolutely phenomenal, one-of-a-kind program in the autism community. It doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet. We're so proud of it. And happy to talk more about that. But we try to be cutting edge and do things that everyone else in the autism community isn't. And that gets me up every morning.
Can learn a lot in 90 minutes.
You could. We
Yeah,
learn a lot.
absolutely can, especially not coming to the table blind. You have a background, you understand, so you can really hear what they're talking about and grasp it. What's the most challenging aspect for you of the work you're doing?
Well, I think you have the business side challenges and you have the coaching side challenges, right? Like on the business side challenges, I have to do my own advertising and marketing. I have to do the strategy sessions, right? Which essentially are sometimes sales calls, right? If a family wants to join the program, that's essentially a sales call, and that's 90 minutes of my day. And sometimes I talk to 2 or 3 families a day. I have to do all my coaching, right? And I have to make sure that our strategy that we're teaching our clients is the most cutting edge, up-to-date strategy that we can possibly give them, because they are trusting us with their social lives. And we want to honor that by being as great at what we do as we can possibly be. And so that's a lot of things, right? We are 2 people, and I started out as 1 person, and we're doing the whole funnel, right? We're generating business, we're creating business, we're servicing the business, we're looking for new opportunities to bring our message. That's a lot of work. And then on the coaching side, right? The skills that we teach people are all the same, right? All of our clients learn how to be more confident and where to go to find their tribe and how to build a mental library of things to talk about, and how to bring that into the real world and try to bring people into their world and into their life, and how to plan hangouts and dates and create momentum into a relationship. We teach all of those things. All of those skills are the same, but every person's brain works differently. And so helping all of our clients make that stick is obviously a real challenge, because all of our clients learn differently.
Yeah, everybody learns differently. Also, even if everything is the usual way, like it is for me, I am more comfortable or more shy in a circumstance. Different people are different ways. Their personality, as well as how their brain functions, all comes into play. So what do you love most?
What do I love most? I literally get to see my clients' lives change sometimes in the span of like days, sometimes weeks, sometimes a few months. I mean, yesterday we do a weekly community call for our clients. All of our active clients and a lot of their moms and dads, and sometimes siblings, join our weekly Zoom. And all we do on Wednesdays is we celebrate their progress and their victories from the last week. And, we had one client who didn't, the first week he joined the program, just didn't even want to be on camera. He just shied away from the camera, and he was visibly uncomfortable. And like 2 weeks later, he is so excited by the progress that he's made in the program that he was just like ebullient on the yesterday. He was like smiling and talking, and when he was done, he was like, okay, I'm done. But we very frequently get to see people's mindset shift. These are 20, 30, 40-year-old people who, who've been going sort of in this one direction for their whole life, and they've been lonely and frustrated. And then we just we get to see them in a totally different light. They're motivated and excited and making progress and celebrating. And their parents cry, we cry with them. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's next level.
Yeah. It's beyond.
Yeah, it's beyond.
Yeah. How did you prepare for the change? Because you went from having a set job, making a good income, and then all of a sudden you're starting something new. You don't make money on day one. So how did you prepare yourself? It's psychological, it's financial. There are many aspects. How were you able to pull that off?
Yeah, so you have to remember, like, I started small, and I started like the way that many coaches do, which is I traded my time for money. I did these workshops at the JCC, and I did those for free. Like, I didn't know I was going to become a coach, certainly not an autism coach. And then people started coming up to me after these workshops, being like, "Hey, can we work with you?" And I'm like, "Okay, like, $60, $60 an hour, whatever." Pretty sure that was my first price point. And I would work with these young adults, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And then, Adaptation started paying me to do workshops for them and be their in-house friendship and dating coach. And then other organizations started paying for me to do workshops for them. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And then more people wanted coaching. But the problem was I couldn't get away especially once I was at Chase, I couldn't get away from being a lawyer, right? They call it the golden handcuffs. I was making, I was getting married, starting a family. I was making way too much money to walk away from that and charge $60 an hour. And the hardest thing about a coach is, like, there's a ceiling on what you can make if you're trading time for money, right? That ceiling is either how many hours are you willing to work,
Right.
or how much are you willing to charge?
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how many hours I was willing to work, or how much the market would bear in terms of an hourly fee, I was never going to be able to replace my bank salary. And then I had this sort of epiphany one night, back in 2016 or 2017. I had this epiphany. I had a buddy, Jeff, who had gone to business school. And in business school, you learn from case studies.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I wonder if there is a case study of coaches who, like, make real money. And, like, I scribbled something down on a notepad at like 3 a.m, like, I got to find a case study. And the next day I sort of woke up and I started doing research, and ultimately I found my way to a company that all they do is they help coaches create more scalable businesses. And so I invested in that. I invested a lot of money in that. And it worked. I now have a business where I don't trade time for money. My clients, for the most part, pay me up front. And, instead of working with them every week for a set amount of time, a lot of what I teach them is by sort of online tutorial, which happens to be even more effective than the coaching that I used to do, because a lot of neurodivergent people like to read what I'm talking about. Some of them want to listen to what I'm talking about. Some of them want to read and listen to what I'm talking about. And some of them want to watch it over and over again until they absorb it. And so I don't need to say the same thing to every one of my new clients, because a lot of the basics I just do by online tutorial. And then I get to coach about the nuances, which is a lot more fun for me. And so it's just a much more scalable model for me. And that's how I prepared, right? I worked with this consulting company that taught me that there's a better way to do what I do, so that I can reach more people, have more impact, and not get gray quite as fast.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And because you are one person, you cannot be everywhere at the same time. With limited hours, how are you going to allocate your time?
Exactly.
So what surprised you the most about running your business?
How fast I was successful. Yeah, so I've been coaching for 13 years. I've been running the Social Life 360 program now for 5 years, but I was sort of doing it, in my spare time. I was working a 7-day week because I was a lawyer too.
Right.
And I made the jump to full-time Social Life 360 13 months ago. And the first month was brutal. I basically relaunched as a full-time coach in December of 2022, and I lost money that month. And I remember putting a date on my calendar for June of wait, was it? Yeah, I put a calendar, like I put a June mark on my calendar, and that mark was to reconsider whether I should take the bar exam out here in California, where I live now.
Mhm.
I moved out to California in 2020, and I was like, okay, if this keeps going this way, like I gotta do something else. I was going through a divorce. I had no corporate salary. I have 2 kids that I got to pay for. And so June 2022 was kind of like my drop dead date. This is either going to work or it isn't. And I lost a month in December. My first strategy session of 2022. So January 1st of this year. Sorry, I guess it was December of 2021 that I relaunched. And then January 2022, I remember the date. It was January 3rd, and I had a strategy session with a mom and a son. And I really thought that the turning of the calendar was going to be sort of like the turning point for the business. And she just started cursing at me, because her son really wanted to be in the program, and it just wasn't financially possible for them, no matter what ideas I came up with. And she started cursing at me. And that was really painful. And I thought, man, like maybe this isn't for me. And then something clicked. And like the next day, I got 2 clients at the same time, like on the same day. And then like, I think in February, I got 7 clients. And I made, right. And because I got to serve more people, I made more money in the month of February than I had ever made in a month as a bank lawyer.
Wow.
And then March was good. And then every month after that was good. And I had this target for how many families I wanted to serve in 2022, and and how much money I wanted to make in 2022, so I could decide if this was a viable path. And I almost tripled it.
Unbelievable. Well, there's
And
really a need,
what?
and there's really a need. There really is a need. It's genuine. So it's not just, you're not offering fluff. You're really helping people. And there are so many people who need help.
Yeah, there's a need, and that's important. And I think what's also important that people have told me over and over again is like, I ooze passion for what I do. Like I think about helping autistic people be social from the very second I wake up in the morning till the last second when I go to bed. It's all I think about 7 days a week.
Wow.
There's just something about like cracking that code and helping people live up to their potential that motivates me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think that has helped a lot. All I think about is how to be better at what I do.
Well, it definitely comes across. I mean,
Thank
it
you.
really
Right.
does. So, yeah, it's hugely important. So you actually worked a lot of years doing both before you said.
I spent 14 years to the day as a lawyer. I started at the Bronx DA's office on September 4th of 2007, and my last day at JP Morgan Chase was September 4th of 2021. Yeah.
So you built a viable business.
I built a viable business, right? I knew when I left Chase in September of 21 that I had a business that if I did it full time would be viable.
Yeah.
I tested the hypothesis part time.
What do you wish you knew before you started your company?
How much work it would be.
It's an awful lot of work. I think
Yeah.
anything you want to succeed at is really a lot of work. If you really want to stand out and do the best job possible.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, right? Marketing is a lot of work. Alana and I spend a lot of time networking with other autism professionals and practitioners So we're spending 2 or 3 hours a day talking to other practitioners. We're spending 5, 6 hours a day, doing strategy sessions with families, and that doesn't count for even one moment about the private coaching sessions we do with our clients, the coaching we do over email and text message, the running the business side. It is relentless. I mean, I start thinking, like, I start triaging at 8 a.m, and a lot of days of the week I'm not done until 10:30 at night.
Yeah, but you love what you do. Do you
I
ever
love
miss
what I do.
practicing law?
What?
Do you ever miss practicing law?
First of all, I really enjoyed practicing law. I loved being a prosecutor. I'm still friends with some of the guys that I was at the DA's office with many years ago. I really enjoyed Chase. I loved my bosses. I loved my colleagues. Still friends with many of them. My two of my paralegals texted me yesterday, so yeah. I mean, I missed the law, but I was at one of my clients. One of my clients got married, and
Right. I read about
a
that.
few of them got married, but one of them invited me to be in the wedding.
Right.
And I as I say, like, it was 7. There's something in Judaism called the Sheva Brachot, the seven blessings, right? And you deliver those to the bride and groom under the marital canopy, under the chuppah. And at this quite religious wedding, it was like 6 black hat rabbis who were delivering the blessings, and then me, like the dating coach. Yeah. I'm delivering this blessing to
the thing is, like, everybody picks the rabbanim to do it, but it should be the people who are most meaningful to you, who have really been in your life and changed your life. It's great when you include those people.
10 years later, this
high point. That was the high point.
That was my high point. 10 years later, this client still messages me. He texts me all the time, and I was at this wedding. I looked at this like group of people who are watching me like do the the blessing for the bride and groom. I'm like, I can't look back on my life and think about how many trials I've won. I got to look back on my life and think about how many weddings I'm responsible for.
Yeah,
friendships.
Advice for those who want to start a business where it's really focused on individual client needs, which is what your business is. What advice would you give them?
Like number one, as my mentors told me, you have to solve a bleeding neck problem, right? If you're going to coach people and you're going to make money doing it, you have to solve a problem that is something other people want to pay for. And a lot of people coach in the health space, in the wealth space, in the relationship space. You got to find something that people really need. And you have to be good at what you do. One of the things that's really sort of scary, especially about the autism and special needs space, is that there are a lot of people out there who are more than happy to hang out a shingle and charge money for coaching, but don't have a methodology. They don't have a track record of success. I hate to use the word like snake oil, because that's not what it is. It's like the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
Right. A lot of people who just feel like if I do something, it's better than nothing. And sort of that's kind of not true. Right. You can actually do a whole lot of damage by making people think that they're taking the right action when in fact they're just kind of spinning their wheels. So, find a bleeding neck problem that you can solve and actually be good at it. And then, there are lots of ways to go about it. But for me, it was like I wanted to test the hypothesis before I, stop being a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And, I hired my own consulting company so that I could take the fastest route from where I wanted to be. It was the best investment I've ever made. And I'll never forget, like I got this client in Philadelphia. He was my first client, and it was my 9th strategy session, and he was like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm still great friends with him today. I love that client from here till the ends of the earth. And so, but he was brave because he allowed me to test the hypothesis that, that I could do this and I could help people get outcomes. So I'm so I tested out the hypothesis before I left the banking world.
Yeah. Yeah. And you spent a lot of years building it.
I did. I learned a lot of lessons over the years where I was doing it part-time.
Yeah.
I honed my craft. I learned about marketing. I learned how to be a better coach.
Yep.
But ultimately, what I learned is that it was a viable business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because some things aren't, and you need to know that.
Yeah,
So you have to
correct.
test, go out there and then potentially fail. Put yourself in the position for success. This has been so interesting. I'm going to thank you for doing it. I'm going to shut off the recording and I'm going to give you some connections.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's shut that off.